Hello! Hopefully where you are is a great day. Here in the South, we've gone past our spring winter, as we call it, because it gets pollen all over the ground. Starting to peak up, lots of blooms, and unfortunately the work from home means that we get to take a look at it a little bit more in our front yard. So we're having a wonderful day. Hopefully where you are is safe. You're close to your family, which is, of course, one of the first and most important things. But what you've done today is got a chance to be able to visit with us, and we're excited about it because we get a chance to talk about asset management and the different types of solutions we have and opportunities to move from a system that may be near and dear to you, an application called MP2. So what we want to talk about today is that migration, the opportunities that you can have in moving from MP2, some stories about it, different feature comparisons for it. It's going to last probably about 45 minutes. Going to go through some details and pass off the stories. So sit back, put your coffee or sandwich, you can enjoy it with us, and you can have a great time. Presentation is going to be done by me, Kevin Price, as you can see there, and also Joe Catano. Joe Catano is going to be doing some of the presentations with us. We're going to be going back and forth a bit. And for those of you who are curious, if you're thinking, yeah, I want to get this presentation, I want to get this recording, absolutely. It'll be available after the call. You'll see notice come from us to be able to go out and download it and be able to get to the recording. So in case some of your coworkers, colleagues, friends, family members want to hear about the migration of MP2 to EAM, you'll be able to have that for you. We're also going to be doing something a little bit interesting today. In this particular presentation, we're going to be doing some poll questions. So a chance for you guys to be able to participate interactively in the presentation as well. This is live, so when we do some of these slides, we may have a little bit of back and back between the two of us. We're going to have a good time with it today. Looking at the content today is really talking about two products. One is called MP2. At the time, this application was a leader in the space. Just like N4 EAM is now a leader in the space, at the time, back then, MP2 was a leader, and I was one of the people who did product management for this. It's pretty near and dear to my heart. We went into an environment that needed opportunities to do work order management and to do a bit of asset management, to do some materials and do things at a really basic level. This is where we got the term CMMS, so Computerized Maintenance Management System. In that framework, you had something that was built in that was very basic. In terms of work orders, as an example, you only had 10 user-defined fields. You only had 4 different status types. You were able to see a certain number of custom fields on assets. So it did a little bit of everything, but it didn't do it too deeply, and it didn't do it too vastly. But my God, it was great when it was around, wasn't it? The limited scope also made its way into EAM. So if you look at some of these screens, like the work order daily scheduling down here in the bottom right, this actually looks eerily similar to what we have in the work order daily scheduling of EAM. And rightfully so, because we took a lot of the nuances that were successful in MP2 in usability and capability and design and approach, and we brought them forward. We brought them forward into the modern-day application that you see here of EAM, but we built it on further. There were some limitations, however, in this scope that just didn't apply to where the market demands were. At the time, people wanted to move to the web, and everyone now as well as a web application, that's just what we have to have. MP2 is still a Windows application, still out there, still an application that many use, and application that's in a maintenance mode of development, which means it's not targeted for specific innovations like you would see with EAM, our flagship application, but it has its opportunities to be able to do maintenance management. Limitations around things like architecture, things like mobility, things like predictive maintenance, things like prescriptive maintenance, if you ever want to get there, condition assessments. There's a lot of different things that it was limited in. So along came EAM, the opportunity to look more at the asset, more of what it can do to affect the organization, more of what it can do to affect workflow, what it can do to do integration. There's just a lot of opportunities to be able to look at when you think about EAM as compared to where our beginnings were around MP2. With that said, what I'm going to do is pass it off to Joe. He's going to walk through some slides. As I mentioned, we have some poll questions that we're going to do to give you a chance to be able to interact with it as we go along. If you have questions, there's a Q&A widget that's down there. Please submit your questions in. and we'll start to address those at the end. We are going to handle questions, but it's going to be held towards the end, so we can get to this content today. With that, I'll pass it off to Joe. Joe, all yours.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you, everybody, for having me today. I hope that you're all well and safe during this truly unprecedented time. MP2, great product then. I mean, Kevin just touched on a bunch of it today. Just now, it was a product that helped organizations move from paper to technology. Certainly supports maintenance practices in that CMMS culture, but it starts to find its way to fall short in fulfilling some of the requirements today that weren't necessarily there yesterday. From an end-to-end solution, we're seeing things where we need to have that connectability. We have to have that mobile happen for us. It's not finding its way there. And then it tends to work past its prime. And what I mean is we tend to keep trying to get more out of it when really today's demands, today's requirements are asking for a lot more. And one of the things that we do see is top-performing organizations invest today to get what they need for tomorrow. One of the things that you'll see on the screen is I've got some quotes, and these are from some top-end folks in their business and what they do, and I typically tend to equate sports to a lot of what we do in our business. And the first one is, if what you did yesterday seems big, you haven't done anything today. And where I'm going with that is these requirements of today, they just continue to be more and more. So we need to stay on top of them and be able to do more. So just as Kevin mentioned, we've got some poll questions for you, and here's the first one. So how much more reliable would your assets be if you could move to usage-based maintenance or RCM or predictive with a product like Infor EAM? So a lot of the things that we talk about today is being able to do usage maintenance, being able to do more predictive maintenance, trying to do more with technology and less in that old mechanical format. So give yourself some time and evaluate what you think your score would be if you would be in a position to have a product that could help you with that, with moving to those RCM predictive type maintenance moving forward. Oh, very interesting. Very, very interesting. So 33% of you are at the 75 percentile, 67 at 50%, and 0 at 25%. You're absolutely correct that when you move into a product like EAM, you can start to achieve those goals. You can start to hit those levels that you want to hit.
Our guys that come to these things know what they're doing, Joe. You got to admit.
They do. They do. So EAM, the present and beyond, right? Going back, our requirements today, what we need to meet today, they're so important. And what you need to have, or you need to be positioned with a product, or you need to be positioned with a solution that's going to be information-centered. It's going to have the data sitting at your fingertips, not digging and mining. It's going to drive your process, keep you current, keep you compliant. All of our industries today, whether it's financial or whether it's to a body, we have to hit compliance. That's a priority for us, right? It aligns past time maintenance solutions and maintenance strategies to current and future day of maintenance and asset management. It is a product that allows you to put together an end-to-end solution with your current new smart IoT assets, the mobile, and the biggest one is the analytics. There is so much that we need in our business today to help us do some projections, to help us with understanding how our assets are behaving. And it's my opinion, and I've said this to many people with CloudSuite, it's in any space, any place, at any time, all the time. Very reliable anywhere, in any space. So we'll do another poll question. We'll give you some time on this one. And the question is, how much risk could you reduce with a complete EAM solution? Now again, complete taking into consideration all of those things that you need to do today to comply, financial compliance, in those regulated environments of CGMP, the food with the FDA requirements, if you're in the transportation, right? Those are all big, important requirements that you have to be able to comply with, or you would start to challenge your business. You would really start to challenge your business, and you want to do it in one solution in one place, not going back and forth to different products and spreadsheets. So let's see how this poll question did. Well, again, some big numbers. At 30%, 60% of you believe that you'd be a lot better, and then at 15%, 30%, and then at 10%, at 10%. That's great. That's fantastic. So MP2, challenges that drive change. The reality is there are things that do challenge us in the world today. It challenges all of us in what we do. And some of those are millions of dollars in assets. And let's face it, we're in maintenance, we're in asset management, extremely high expectations. They need to perform. They need to be at the top of their game all the time, although very little commitment to invest on how they're managed. What I mean by that is, if you're going to spend millions and millions of dollars of assets, then you better have a good, solid asset management program, end-to-end, giving you what you need. And here's one that we face everywhere. Rapidly shrinking resource pool of skilled trades. We need to do more with less. You know, that traditional old maintenance guy was just there, available, that could do those meter rounds and that could go out and do those simple fixes and adjustments. Those are becoming scarce, non-existent. So you need to have the ability to go to technology. You need to have that ability to try to get that transition in a place where it's helping you do more with less. And what was more mechanical then is certainly becoming smart now. And for those of you that are on here today, how many of these assets that you traditionally saw as being very mechanical are now tied to a piece of technology, that are monitoring, that are doing things, that are taking readings, that are sharing, are tying to SCADA systems and different MES systems to give you more, to give you that back, so that you can get into predictive type situations because you're monitoring. You can do your condition-based monitoring because you're getting that information, and then you can take that in to AI, and you can get into your analytics to help you. That's the theme today, is heading down that direction. So I'm going to share the next quote here is, how do you win? By getting average players to play good and good players to play great. That's how you win. I think everyone who does what they do, certainly in the asset management world, the maintenance organization world, they want to win every day. Every day they go in and they want to have a great day. They want their assets to be running all the time. They want their assets to live the life cycle that they've planned for. And one of the ways to do that is start to put solutions around the folks, start to make them better, and continue to make them better with that technology. Continue to invest in that, because the return is just coming back through your assets, which then just comes back in the products and services that you provide to the customers that are buying them. Make that investment. Don't be afraid of that investment, because the return is significant. All right, we've got another poll question, and this one is, how much more efficient could your workforce be through mobile and EAM? This one is really one for me that I'm going to be curious on the responses. Let's think about it today, folks. Everybody is on mobile. Everybody's on a mobile device. And when you think about that shrinking pool of resources who you don't have anymore, or you're not having them, and now they're limited, and now you're printing reams of paper and handing it off to them. We need to get them modern. We need to get them mobile. We need to get them interactive. We need to get them involved to get us that information, to get that complete, to bring that into our asset management system so that we can drive the results in our maintenance organization, and drive the results in our asset management program. So let's see what our feedback is. Absolutely. Absolutely. You can get far, far, far more making that investment in a product like EAM that's going to give you that mobile capability. Absolutely. Absolutely. Without question. So I just want to share the last quote. And I'm a hockey guy, by the way. A good hockey player plays where the puck is. A great hockey player plays where the puck is going to be. And what I'm saying by that is we can't lose sight that, yep, MP2 is a good product. It was great then. But if you want to be in a place where you need to be ready for today and absolutely ready for tomorrow, you've got to go into that space. You've got to be able to play in that space. You've got to be able to move and hover and navigate to that space, because that's the way of the world. So, making the move. And this is from experience. People love it. I've had the ability to work in the maintenance asset management world for a little over 25 years. I've had the ability for over the last 12, 13 years of working on implementing Infor EAM with various customers, and certainly with a multitude of assets. I tell everybody I have the greatest job in the world, that I can go around and work with customers and play with their assets and implement them so that they can become better. And one of the things that I do is also help people move from MP2 to EAM. And people love it. It's a step, and people do love it because it's all movable. And people start to resonate with EAM. Infor has put together a ton of utilities, the conversion utility to get in, the import utility, the upload utility, which all allows the ability to make that move. Philosophically, it operates the same. There's some terminology because, again, we were working with yesterday's language, and our world is today and tomorrow in the asset management and certainly in the maintenance world. So, yeah, there is some terminology that become current, but we can move today's data that will become tomorrow's information. And here's kind of the last quote is, the pain you feel today will be the strength you feel tomorrow. I believe that full-heartedly. If you are in MP2, 9 times out of 10, you're going to do alternative processes and do alternative things because you need a report to come out, or you need, you need some information. You need to do those things. Moving to a product like Infor EAM, it's all there. It's all there at your fingertips. It can be there. It can move. It can hover. It can start to respond to tomorrow's requirements with ease. Okay. So another poll question. Interchangeably, how much could you save and grow through uptime with Infor EAM? So again, thinking about uptime is the primary reason is keeping your assets running to produce those products and or services that you offer to your customers to buy. But it's also about the operation of your asset management program. It's also about your maintenance organization and what you do in order to keep those assets running. You need to give thought to how much you invest in doing additional things or working a little bit extra because you're not using a modern product today like Infor EAM. Give thought to that. Why do I have to work extra to run off a spreadsheet or to calculate or put some macros in when I've got a product that can do all of that? Just give thought to that as you answer it. All right? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You can increase your uptime holistically across the board. Absolutely you could. All right? So I just want to share a customer success story. It is a beautiful part of the world, both on the Canadian and the U.S. side. It actually is the wine region up here in Canada. This is a municipality, and we'll talk a little bit about them. They had a challenge where they had a series of MP2 installations in multiple locations, and they were able to consolidate and move to a centralized model. And while doing that, they were able to gain a series of improvements that they needed in order to run their business. Okay? So one of the things that they were motivated to change was they needed to centralize and get into a centralized maintenance model. They needed to gain the ability to respond to compliance and, some regulatory responsibilities by calibration, which is a module we can't find in MP2, a deeper understanding of their value streams or hierarchies, and GIS. I mean, just as much pipe is above ground and their operation, there's a ton of it underground. And they needed to leverage connectivity of inputs and outputs of other systems so that they could continue to do those things that they need to do every day to provide the service that they do to their constituents. So, how did they do it? So they moved and consolidated those 12 implementations. They migrated into a single EAM. They did a data collection effort, which allowed them to get all on the same page. The training of staff and getting everybody aligned on one product at the same level. And they continue to have continuous improvement programs as part of their asset management and as part of their maintenance organization to stay on top of those requirements they have every day. How do they do it? They did a rapid implementation, and then they did a continuous improvement program that they did year over year, year over year, year over year. Some impacts. They moved to that central model with everyone in one application, which was huge for them. They are better structured and better able to handle regulatory compliance and report on compliance to various bodies. And they're able to get all of the value out of the systems that they are connected to continue to run their business. So with a change like that, there's always some lessons learned, and certainly things that I would share to everyone that are things that you need to think about when you're going down this path. Is it really it's not a race, it's a journey. You got to be patient with the process. Just because we always want to run faster and quicker doesn't necessarily mean we're doing the right thing. Travel at a pace that you can qualify as doing what you expect it to do and yielding the value that you want it to yield. Old cliche, crawl, walk, run. Implement and grow at the pace that you can sustain. Just because you can throw up functionality, get it up there real quick, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Now get it in a place where you can get the usage and that availability to those folks so that they can continue to use it and you can get the value out of it. And one of the things that I do encourage a lot of folks to think about is the change management side. Certainly don't underestimate the importance of change management. When you talk about a user community, it's very typical for every user to figure out their nuances and figure out what they do every day. And then when there's a change that's involved, that can turn their world upside down, depending on the user. Spend time understanding that to bridge the gap and try to close on that so that users are going to get the value that you're expecting when making that change. So some next steps, they continue to gain the ability to handle the asset management and the regulatory changes that they're faced with every day, and they continue to stay current and evolve to requirements. So that's a big, big thing for them. At this stage, I want to thank everybody for having me today. It's been a fun time talking about MP2 and N4 EAM. This is what I do, and I love to see folks certainly succeed in the ventures that they go out in asset management, maintenance management with these products. So with that, I will hand it back over to Kevin.
Thanks, Joe, but don't run away yet. We still got a lot of questions to come at you, Joe, but before nobody on the phone, don't leave me yet. We got some good questions to talk through. And if you have your own, please submit them into the Q&A widget. When we think about EAM, there's a few things that we want to keep in your mind. to remember. Moving forward with EAM from MP2, you're in good hands. It is the world-class system as a best-in-breed for enterprise asset management. We've won a lot of awards for it. We've won Product of the Year awards in different categories from plant engineering and plant services. We lead the ability to execute in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. The ability to execute is something that's kind of hard to do because it means that your customers are happy. And we have a lot of those that are happy, easy to call on. Joe just talked about one in the region of Niagara, but I'm sure he could go on for hours on end, if not days on end. So as a best-in-class, as a market leader, as a world leader, we're ready for you to be able to move. And we have built-in utilities and tools and different types of functions for you to be able to be comfortable in when you move from one version of MP2 to a modern solution like EAM. Another thing I wanted to make sure that you can see is the Inforum. Inforum is our user group that's coming up. It's going to be in September in Vegas. Of course, markets being back open again, hopefully about that time. It's a great opportunity. Usually it's around 5,000 to 6,000 of your closest friends hanging out and talking about enterprise asset management, about work management. There's a lot of user groups to attend. There's a lot of classes to attend. There's a lot of other products and technologies to learn about. So if you get a chance to be able to take a look at that, I ask you to do. It's at inforum.infor.com. Joe, we're going to go into some of these questions. It says, let's go with the first one, is Absolutely. What kind of transition can we expect from users moving from MP2 to EAM? Let's go over a little bit what I've always heard around transition. I want to pass it back to you. Transitions can mean so many different things. It can mean just mainly a lot of culture change and change management. People are not used to using web applications, and I think it's going to be a big difference. And typically what we find is that it's not. A transition in moving from different roles and the user flows that we're used to, different types of work status changes. And when I get it, it's usually at this status. And when I approve it, then it goes to that department and they work on it. All of that stays the same. There's not a lot of change that goes on. There is opportunities to learn about additional features, additional functionality, looking at assets in a different way, a deeper way, a more intimate way, and understanding how those assets affect everything that you do. So there is a change to that respect. But when you think about the change and the transition, typically we find it for the better. We don't find it for the frustrating. Joe, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Kevin. It really, really is one of those things where there's a series of folks that think that, the world's going to be completely flipped upside down. And when they start down the path and we head down that alley, it really starts to synthesize with them, and it starts to come and really align with a lot of what they're doing in the sense of how much more they're going to get, and this whole pent-up anxiety of trying to make that move starts to diminish and go away because, when you're cultured in a CMMS-type culture, one of the things that you do have that works as a benefit to you is you've got kind of that learning apparatus or the pole vault that takes you into asset management, right? It helps you get down that way. And I can tell you one big thing on transition, and this is for the thought leaders that are on the call today and those moving forward in the future, and I shared this with some customers and some other folks, is that I did an experiment. I've got a 19-year-old son who is going into the trade, and I did a bit of an experiment with him.
19-year-old son has a lot of experiments. There's a lot of different things you could talk about with that.
Yeah, all of those are rated R, so I'll try and keep those away.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
So one of the things that I did with him is I showed him the MP2 UI, the EAM UI, and I showed him Infor EAM Mobile. And one of the things that I found through that experience with him is that the EAM UI, he was thumbing through it and, wow, this is real cool. This is real good. He went into the Infor EAM UI and he says, yep, that makes sense. That makes sense in my world. And then I came back to the MP2 UI and he goes, very politely says, what's this? And I said, well, that's where we came from. And you know what? I'll show my age. When I came into maintenance, we were using 3.5 by 5 cue cards. So that'll give you a little bit about my age for those of you who don't know me.
That's okay.
What I want to leave with everybody is, your future workforce is going to look like that 19-year-old that I did that experiment with. And you need to give thought to that, certainly on the trade side, because those are the folks that are going to be coming into your workforce, and you want to have them be able to synthesize with the technology that you're going to ask them to work on to perform the work you're asking them. That's what I have to offer on that one.
That's a good point, because I've even read where the age of teenagers now and that generation is even called the screenagers. So they know nothing but screens their entire lives, and how to manipulate the world with an app. Forget about a browser. So these kids are going to come in, the workforce kids. I say that because you and I have the paper cuts and the 3.5 by 5 cards. But looking at these new graduates coming out of school, they're coming out with heavy skills and heavy ability, but they're used to not even using browsers anymore. Skipping past the browser and using apps. It's a good point to make. Let's go on to the next question. The next question is near and dear to many. It's on getting information out of the system. So ability to build reporting in MP2 is limited. What would you have seen from folks that move over? And I can talk a little bit to that before I pass it over to you, Joe. But on MP2, when we were releasing that solution, we embedded some things. We embedded some of the Seagate recording tools into the system. We also had a database access, of course, because it's on-site, not in the cloud. So you can use different other types of applications that you would attach, like single reporting services, if you guys remember some of those. Different tools that you get access to the back end that people are used to. So when you move into the cloud, you're thinking, okay, am I going to get out the information that I need? Am I going to be able to support the reports that my bosses want, and their bosses' bosses, and their bosses' bosses' bosses? And the answer is yes. As a matter of fact, if you look at some of the tools that are available, there's a lot of different ways to get information out of the system. I'll talk about a few and pass it over to Joe, but a lot of what we typically see even is in our implementations, any single list view that we have can be exported into Excel because everybody knows Excel. We have start centers that you can see, so you set up the daily life. When I come in, what are the top 3 things I'm worried about? And I want to see KPIs and inbox values of those right off the bat. What about if I want to see some type of scaled report or things like that? We have tools for that. It's already built in. These are things that migrate in culture from one person being used to using a system and reporting in a certain way, and then move over into the EAM framework. Joe, what do you have to say about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the tools in for EAM, certainly the tools that you can build on the dashboard, and certainly the advanced reporting author. When I think about, the filters in MP2, and then I do a comparison on the data spies to EAM, export to Excel, it's easy, it's there, it's at my fingertips, I can pull it out. I'm knowledgeable with Excel, I can manipulate, I can present it. I think the biggest thing for me is the folks that have moved from MP2 to EAM, a lot of their initial feedback is, wow, we're printing a lot less paper. And that's a big thing. That's a big thing, because today, if you want some reporting like that, you got to hit the print button, get a report. You got to hit the print button, get a report, or you get frustrated because you can't take that information directly into something manipulatable like Excel. So one of the things we typically see is that immediate value and the benefit of the dashboard, of being able to get KPIs, which were typically reports back then. It's sitting there, it's on a dashboard. You click on it, it explodes down into the data set that's sitting there. I can bump that into Excel, and I can do what I want to do there. And I think the biggest one for me is the advanced reporting feature within Infor EAM and how robust that is, and its ability to automate certain reporting. One of the key things that we tend to work with on implementations with customers, certainly from a maintenance organization, is their first meeting in the morning is to look back on breakdowns in the past 24 hours. And you would have people running around in circles, gathering paper and jotting down notes to get that to their meeting. Well, today that's just a report that is automated, scheduled, coming out of Infor EAM, delivered via email into the maintenance manager's inbox. And because most people are device-centric today, they don't necessarily have to get into the device per se. They just click on that report and they've got that information directly in front of them. And the system did all that heavy lifting over time to deliver it. So we see an immediate embrace on the dashboard, the immediate embrace of those reports that traditionally people are hitting the button and the ability to leverage data spies to get stuff out to Excel. Absolutely. Win-win situation.
Great points. Your prior comment, though, around your 19-year-old, of course, bears in mind something we did a long time ago. We were focusing on usability back in 2012 and 2013, a couple of other areas. We always wanted to make sure it could be usable, it could be picked up. That was a big thing, and we tried, even with kids, trying to just pick it up and start using it. And when you're talking about your reporting just now, I mean, it needs to be that easy too. You need to have lots of reporting ways to get information out. It needs to be the daily part of your life. Just the regular workflow of getting information out should be easy. It should be a natural extension. It should be something that requires a lot of people with a lot of education, a lot of different types of certifications to do. Implementations that I've seen over the years, and I've been doing this a while, it varies. Depends on needs and what goes on. But one of the things that I've learned a lot in watching Joe work is to ask the question, why? Why do you need this type of output? Or why do you need this type of metric? Or why are you doing it in a certain way? Never, ever stop asking why. Because take a look at how you do asset management differently is a good thing. Take a look how you do work management differently is a good thing. Any type of feedback that you can get and what you can do to improve the business is going to, in the run, be a wonderful thing. So definitely agree with all those points. Another question that's come up too, Joe, is if someone wanted to move from EAM to MP2, can you explain how that would look like from a data perspective? People are always worried about losing data as they go through. And in EAM, we do have utilities to help people move, right? We have approaches to move. And one of the questions I always get is, should I just take everything I have and just dump it in? And the answer, unfortunately for me, which can be frustrating for some, is usually it depends. It depends on how it looks. Because you may want to improve it just statically. You may want to put on different numbering, different intelligence, try different number of descriptions into it. But also, when you move to a new system like EAM, there are a ton more opportunities on how to express that data differently. And this is something real near and dear to Joe's heart. So I'm going to pass it off to him. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. It generally tends to be the biggest question because the first thing that folks think about is, we've got this data. Can I clean it up a little bit? What can I do with it? Here's kind of the general stance that I have with every customer, and that's some data is better than nothing. And some data can always be evaluated. It can always be looked at, optimized, improved when you have something. So extracting it, yes, we've got the utilities to extract it. Can we put it into a format, an Excel, that gives the customer that ability to want to optimize and enhance and get more out of that data? Absolutely. Can I take that now polished, we'll call it a polished set of data, and I'll start to put that into my Infor EAM? Yes, you can. Can I preserve the history that I did and had from the past? Yeah, absolutely. With the MP2 utility, it gives us the ability of getting it into Infor EAM, and it's available at your fingertips. It is history, right? And I think one of the things that I continue to tell customers is that your data is information that you've invested in. Don't throw it away. Take it, assess it, analyze it. There are methods, there are intervention steps that you can always take to make your data a little bit better and continually enhance it to improve who you are and what you do with that information in the business that you run, in the asset management program that you have for your assets, and how your maintenance organization uses that data in order to evaluate what it is going to do on managing those assets. I think it's an opportunity for folks to always take that type of approach, because remember, if you're working with a product that was somewhat of yesteryear, you may need some requirements, you may need some optimizations to that data for what you are facing today. So take that time to do that. And always know that some data is always better than nothing. That's what I would do.
So we have a question that's kind of in tangent to this. Is just at a high level, what are the steps that you would need to go through when you're looking at that process? I know it's hard to answer because it really depends, right, on what you see and where you want to go and what you want to do and things like that. But at a high level, what are the different types of actions that you want to take?
Yeah, so for me, what I would say is, number one, I'm a guy, and I'll stand back and I stand behind this all the time. Number one, everything we do is about process. So understanding our processes and making sure that we feel good about the processes. Because remember, processes transition into things that we're going to do to support those processes, and what we use is data to fulfill what we're doing. So understanding that process and then evaluating those processes. So if I have a work order process and I'm just kind of doing it with those current statuses, for example, sitting in MP2, and maybe I'm not gathering all the information and the data because I don't have those fields available because of the limitation of custom fields, that's the first evaluation I would see. Is I would look at my work order process, evaluate it, look at maybe how many altering different situations it runs into, and then I would take a look to see, am I getting the data that I need today for that process? And if I'm not, what's the delta? What am I missing? And then stand back and look to see where that data is going to come from. That would be the first step that I would do, because remember, if you're doing something that is yesteryear, you're only doing certain pieces of what you really, really want to do. That means that the data that you have is only limited to what you have. But moving to EAM, that's the opposite of that. You can now put in your process to tighten it up, make it solid, and that can tell you what it is that you're going to need in data and information to help support that process, to help report on it, to give you those information that you're looking for. Right? That's what's filling those dashboards. That's what's filling, certainly we talk about today dashboards, talk about the analytical type dashboards. That's the information that we're looking for. That's what I would tell folks how they should get started.
Great. So one of the things that is common is moving to mobile. And in a lot of our MP2 installations especially, we have a lot of folks that are still using paper, and they print a lot of paper. They print a lot of paper for work management, not only just, high-level task instructions and plans, the details and stuff, but all the other stuff that goes along with it. I mean, it comes a lot. So one of the main things that's always first and foremost to the head is how can I get away from this? How can I get to something that becomes more electronic, just like you said, in going mobile? How quick do you feel, based on your history, Joe, in your opinion, can a user get up to speed on mobile to where they can basically almost do it on their own and be an effective, a unit for it and keep it on the field? Because, one of the most unnatural things you've ever can see in maintenance management is a maintenance tech sitting behind a computer. That person needs to be in the field with a wrench and turning what they need to turn, doing what they need to do, and that's where you need them to be, is out in the field doing those jobs. So in that transition from a paper environment to mobile, how quick is it, and what have you seen on how easy that shift is?
It's quicker than people think. It is quicker than people think. Going back to MP2, and they use the term tasks and instructions, 9 times out of 10, the instruction set that's sitting there is text, which we print out in paper, and then we ask somebody to spend time and check all that stuff off in paper. That is, in effect, a substantial amount of work to start going into Infor EAM with a great feature called checklists, which now allows us to mobilize our workforce, which now starts to put those, once upon a time, I'm going to check these off on a piece of paper in my phone or in my tablet, and I'm just going to enter some data, and I'm going to update those checklists, which now is building a series of information, which takes us deeper into things like trends that we want to see and trends that we want to report on the health of certain pieces of assets. Being able to book labor. Today we write it on somebody would write it on a piece of paper and take that work order and drop it off to the maintenance clerk, and then the maintenance clerk would pick it up and try to figure out what somebody wrote on the piece of paper and try to enter it into the system.
Yeah, but that piece of paper was a mobile solution, wasn't it? I can take it with me and put it in my pocket.
It was. And then there was the hard lift of trying to get all information back into the system and hoping that nobody was on vacation. They're there to put all that information. Today, you can take that device, it's with the person, and the person can pick their work order, select the activity they're going to work on, and click the button and let technology track time. Let it do that job. That's what it's there for. Being able to have owner's manuals. How many times as a technician, being in a paper-based world, gets out to a piece of equipment, and he's sitting there and, I need the owner's manual, I need this procedure. Now he's got to walk back to the shop, or he's got to walk back to where his documents are in order to go get something and read it when he can have it right there in front of him. I mean, these things are all things that people do today in a very manual situation that are easily transportable to technology, to putting it in the device, to having the device ready and able so that they can get their work orders, prioritize, be able to work on their work order activities, book their hours that they need, book the parts that they're using, be able to do the checklist, those checks that we do in instructions today, and performing those, and putting that information into EAM that we can use to trend. Back then, when we put it in paper, we then have to pay again for somebody to put it into Excel. So we paid for it twice. Now it's sitting and it's going directly into EAM. Now we have advanced reporting and we have analytical tools that can go pull that information and start to expose that information, which is a priority to us. Be able to have documents, be able to have that, and be able to be connected with our workforce all the time. The distance between the piece of paper getting to the office and getting into something like MP2 could be up to a week. It could never happen sometimes if the piece of paper got lost. But if we've got a device and we're online and we have people connected and they're getting that information in, we're getting results. We're getting what we're looking for back out of it. So I think in practice, everybody is doing all of those aspects of mobile. Now they just have to put the technology in front of them and yield the value and yield the results of doing that. That's my spin on it.
We had an interesting comment, more than a question, as we got to that piece, is a lot of people now navigate through Facebook anyway, so they're familiar with mobile. The transition to mobile may not be as hard as you think, and may be much of a lift as you actually are thinking. I totally agree with you. Well, Joe, we're running a bit on end here, so we've gone through our time. We had said it with a folks on the phone. I appreciate your effort. We thank you very much for your time, your effort, your energy, taking a look at what we can do in moving folks from MP2 to EAM. There's just a ton of opportunities. So if you get the chance, reach out to us. Reach out to Joe and his team and his group. It's a wonderful partner of ours. Done a lot of extraordinary things. As you can tell, pretty passionate about this practice and what he can do and what he can offer, because he has a lot of track record of success. We have a lot of customers. If you're ever interested to speak a little bit more to him or to speak a little bit more to us, please reach out. Be glad to help you with that. I appreciate your time. Have a wonderful day.